Let's continue this conversation. We have top Romney advisor and former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty. We have Jim Pethokoukis of the American Enterprise Institute, and Chris Chocola, president and CEO of the Club for Growth. I want you to take a quick listen, gentlemen, to what Mitt Romney said last night about taxes and the economy.
This president wants to raise your taxes. I'm going to cut them. That's going to start with an across-the-board 20% rate cut for every American. I'll also repeal the alternative minimum tax, and we will abolish, finally, the death tax.
All right. Now, Tim Pawlenty, welcome back, Governor. It's always such a pleasure. I want you to tell me, I want you to swear on a stack of Bibles with absolutely no hedges that Mitt Romney is going to continue on a daily basis, 24/7, to push the tax cut plan, the entitlement reform plan, the deficit cutting plan, so America can grow and stay out of bankruptcy. Will he do it, Tim? Is this the new Romney campaign?
Larry, have I ever steered you wrong yet? I mean, you were telling me that there wasn't going to be a phase 2. There was a phase 2. It's pro-growth. You like it for all the reasons Mitt just indicated in that clip. The #1 issue in Michigan was the economy. Those voters were also concerned about who's best situated to defeat Barack Obama. And you can set the political rhetoric aside. When you look at how people view these candidates, there is no question that Mitt Romney has got, both in his rhetoric and in the substance, is best positioned to grow jobs and get this economy moving because he's been an entrepreneur. He's been in the private sector. He hasn't spent his whole adult life, like Rick Santorum, in Washington, D.C. or in government. And yes, he is going to be out talking every day about growing jobs in a pro-growth manner, and that tax proposal is one of the centerpiece parts
and Governor
of it.
Pawlenty, let me ask you this. The next step, it seems to me, is to contrast Obama's tax hike. The top tax rate will go from 35 to 45%. Dividends will go from 15 to 45% under President Obama. Under Mr. Romney's plan, the top rate goes from 35 to 28 and on down the line. Capital gains and dividends stay at 15. Now, that contrast, it seems to me, is almost an election definitional contrast. Will Mr. Romney make that contrast?
Yes, absolutely, Larry. There's no question about it. He'll be making it every day. And, you know, maybe we won't get into all the details in every speech, but you know the components of that pro-growth, pro-job, pro-economic development platform that he's put out. It's going to work, and it's very good. Back to the matter is, most people, Larry, want to know how to...
You hedged. You said we won't see all the details. That sounded like a
No, I said you know all the... Larry, listen to me now. You always try to twist my words. If you're sitting at the bar stool, sitting on a bar stool at the end of the VFW in my former meatpacking town of South St. Paul, you don't look up at the TV screen and go, you know, that guy's got a great white paper for reforming Sarbanes-Oxley. What they want to know is, am I going to have a job? And so that's why you got to frame it in the context of terms that people can understand. You get all of the details, and we'll talk about them, and we'll certainly put them out there. But in the end, it comes down to, are you going to grow jobs and get this economy moving? The answer from Mitt Romney is yes.
I'll concede the point. I haven't been on a bar stool in 17 years. Chris Chocola, welcome back to the show. I just want to read from the exit polls last night. The two most important issues, the economy, 55% felt the economy was the most important issue. Of that group, Romney 47, Santorum 29. The second most important issue, again from the exit polls, the budget deficit, 24%. Romney 48. Santorum 30. Can Santorum possibly compete with Romney on the economy? I know Santorum tried to pivot last night, Chris, but right now, from the Michigan polls, Romney is the prohibitive favorite because he does have a new plan.
Larry, I think for Santorum to be competitive, he has to be a little less Rick Santorum, and I think Romney needs to be a little more Mitt Romney. And what I mean by that is Rick Santorum needs to basically say, you know what, I'm the grandson of a coal miner. I've got an economic plan that's bold, and it's going to help every working family in America. If he sticks with that and he paints a vision of economic growth and limited government and responsible spending, I think he can be very competitive. With Mitt Romney, I think he needs to be a little bit more Mitt Romney and quit with the apology and say, you know what, he's a little bit like Tony Robbins. I'm very successful, and I can make you successful too. I understand how to grow this economy and create jobs. Has been my life. So both of them, I think, have to be more bold in their embracing of economic issues, and because that's what the voters clearly want to hear. And they've both been a little bit timid or distracted at this point.
Jimmy P., were people afraid of Rick Santorum? Did that come out in the vote last night? And look, I'm not here to character attack Santorum. I've known him for years. But in terms of the JFK church and state state debate throwing up. In terms of being against contraception, women in the military, women in the office, Jimmy. Is, in fact, Santorum got a problem that he's the moralizer in chief, and that people worry that if he were elected president, he would put all this stuff into play? Were people afraid of Santorum in last night's Michigan election?
You know, every Republican knows that when you mention JFK, the next words out of your mouth has to be tax cuts. If you're talking about JFK, you need to be talking about the JFK tax cuts, not church and state or anything else. I think they saw Santorum, and then they started fast-forwarding to November, an election that, despite the fact the president's doing better, this is a very winnable election. And they imagined a fall campaign about abortion, contraceptives, sex, condoms, all that stuff, and not about the fact that this president wants to raise taxes by $2 trillion and the debt would get worse despite all those tax hikes. That's what they want. That's what they want this campaign to be about, not the other stuff.
And Jimmy Pete, let me just give you a follow-up on this. I want to flip back to Mitt Romney. Romney's come back in two important primaries, right? He was down double digits in Florida to Gingrich, and he came back and won by double digits. He was down double digits to Santorum in Michigan, and he came back and he won by 5 points. Is Romney the underrated guy in the race? Is Romney the tougher, more resolute? He called himself resolute in the debate. But is he underrated, tougher, and more resolute than anybody gives this guy credit for? Can that be said right now as we run up to Super Tuesday?
Well, I mean, I think early on there was a little bit of he might have a glass jaw, that there was some sort of a wimp factor involved. Listen, he's taken a punch, he's hit the mat, he's got back up, and when he's getting back up, he's actually become a better candidate. He's expanded more, as Chris said. He's expanded more on his economic policy. Now he has a tax plan. As long as he keeps focusing on that, cut taxes, cut debt, cut government, he'll probably be okay.
Tim Polanyi, one of the things that came out, Michael Barone wrote this up, that came out in the exit polling is very important because it could go to the Obama race. Among affluent suburban voters in Michigan and the east side of Michigan, and the east side of Detroit, up the river and so up the lake and so forth, Mitt Romney did very well. He may have won the election there. Affluent suburban voters. Now, this was one of Obama's key areas of victory in 2008. Is this a big swing that's going on? Michigan is going to be a battleground state, or possibly. Why is your man getting the suburban vote?
Well, one of the things you see out of the demographics from last night in Michigan, Mitt did very well, first of all, amongst Republicans. That's important in a Republican primary, with women, with Catholics, with independents, and others. And one of the reasons, I think, is because of the economic message. Part of the swing vote in the general election is going to be suburban voters, particularly suburban women. And one of the things they like about Mitt Romney is the fact that he has got a sense of getting the country turned around in a pro-growth, pro-jobs, investment, entrepreneurial. He's got the credibility and experience to back it up. He is not a Washington, D.C. politician. Most people define the problem as D.C.
Governor, how is he lost under 100,000. How is he going to appeal to those folks?
Well, he's going to appeal to those folks the same way he did in Florida and Nevada and other places. People want jobs. And the main concern for most everyday Americans is, am I going to have a job? Their pathway to a quality life hinges on that fact. And so the details of maintaining the % rate on capital gains and qualified dividends and interest and lowering those rates 20% are very important, and we'll be pounding on every day. The net result that most Americans are concerned about is, are you going to do those things that are going to make it more likely that jobs are going to grow? Mitt Romney's actually done it. Rick Santorum has spent his whole life in government. He can't walk the walk. He can only talk the talk, and people are sick of that.
Let me give that a chance, though. Chris Chocola, I want to give you the last word, because I personally don't think Santorum's dead. I mean, I think Mitt snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, and he had a great night. But in terms of Santorum's plan, in terms of you're looking at it, Chris, Club for Growth, free market supply side, I can't find an economist, not a single economist, at least they'll come on this show, and defend the zero tax rate on manufacturing. People say it's pandering, it's picking winners and losers, it's industrial policy, and I wonder how big a weakness you think that is, or is Santorum going to move away from that and just stick to lower tax rates on individuals and businesses and even it out?
Well, both Santorum's and Romney's economic plans do reflect the vision of a politician in some respects. They do pick winners and losers. With Santorum, with manufacturers, with Romney, he picks the $200,000 magical rich person level, which is an arbitrary number. But yeah, I think that, you know, good tax policy is neutral. It doesn't incentivize anyone to do anything other than work, save, and invest, no matter who you are. But ultimately, you know, if gas prices are over $4 a gallon, if unemployment is well above 8%, I think the greatest asset of either one of these candidates is they're not going to be Barack Obama on Election Day.
Last one. Will the Club for Growth endorse, or are you going to stay out?
You know, we're going to watch at this point. We'll call balls and strikes on policy that the candidates offer to try to give commentary on whether we think it's pro-growth or not, and we think that's our proper role right now.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Governor Tim Pawlenty, Jimmy Pethokoukis, Chris Chocola, we thank you. Coming up on Kudlow, did Fed head Ben Bernanke send stocks and gold plunging today?